Hey there, welcome back to Podcasting for Educators. I love having other podcasters on to share their unique experiences with podcasting, and that's exactly what you'll hear in this episode. I have Rachel Lenhart on the show. I connected with Rachel a couple of months ago when she joined my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School. She is the perfect example of someone who took action and dove into the content, implemented what I teach, and as a result, she just recently relaunched the Chock Full of Life podcast. Rachel's a fourth grade teacher getting ready to start her 20th year in the classroom, and she's overcome burnout twice and became a certified life coach to help teachers not make the same mistakes that she made. Her mission with Chock Full of Life is to help teachers live their best life both in and out of the classroom. If you are an educator at any grade level, I really encourage you to check out her podcast because Rachel is just the most down-to-earth and genuine person to talk to. She really brings in her experiences and perspectives from teaching into her show, and her podcast is a place where you can go to really feel supported and seen from someone who gets what you're going through. In this episode, Rachel shares why she decided to start her show and how the launch process went for her. Like I said, Rachel is a student in my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School. And today, I'm excited to announce that the doors are officially open for enrollment again for the prep school. This is a self-paced course that will give you everything you need to get your podcast planned and launched. Most importantly, it's going to give you the tools you need to set yourself up for success long-term and grow your show over time. When you join, you get lifetime access to the content and access to our private Facebook group community where you can come and ask any questions that you have and connect with other podcasters. Starting in mid to late August, we are going to be starting monthly trainings and Q&A calls as well. Plus, all the content is also housed on a private podcast so you can learn on the go. If you want to learn more, you can head to podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. And to show some extra love to you as a podcast listener, you can use the code PFE podcast to get $50 off. That's PFE podcast. I hope to see you inside the course. All right, that is enough of that. I can't wait for you to hear from Rachel, so let's get into it. Your podcast is a powerful tool that serves your audience and your business. But how do you manage it all, bring in new listeners, and convert those listeners into customers? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators. I'm Sarah Whitaker, classroom teacher turned podcast manager, and I'm here to help you get the most out of your show, all while making an impact on other educators. Hello, Rachel. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators. I am so happy to have you here on the show today.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Now, I'd love to get started by having you share a little bit about your teaching background and about your business as well.
Well, in August next month, I will be starting my 20th year in the classroom, which is crazy to say that.
Yes.
I'm currently teaching fourth grade, and I got started with this teacher wellness and advocacy actually probably back in like 2017, 2018. A good friend of mine started Chock Full of Life, and I was kind of helping her as the teacher in the classroom. She had left the classroom at that point, and so I was just kind of helping her with some behind the scenes stuff and giving her some ideas as far as like what teachers were really struggling with. And I have always been a proponent of just teacher wellness and teachers taking care of themselves. I burnt myself out in probably like 2013, 14. Well, it was more like 2014. Mm-hmm. I had my second child in 2013 and was able to take like an extended maternity leave and came back. And I just felt like almost everything had changed. We had a lot of turnover at the building where I was, and then a lot of principal and admin movement around the whole district that I was at the time. And so I felt like I came back to this like completely new building, but it was the same building. And just at that point, I had been teaching for like 10 years. And so I had always thought like a good teacher was like the first teacher in the parking lot and the last teacher to leave in the evening. And that was just kind of like the mindset that I started my career with. And that ended up with me being burnt out. And over the many years, I realized that you don't have to work yourself into the ground to be a good teacher. And over the years, it's just kind of morphed into what became later known as Chock full of life, and teaching teachers how to not make the same mistakes my friend Kelly, who originally started Chock full of life, and then myself, what the mistakes that we had made early on in the early 2000s when we were young and just trying to figure out this teacher life thing. And so that kind of brought us to where we are probably like 2018 when we first started. And then shortly after that, the pandemic happened and teaching was forever changed.
Yes.
And that virtual or hybrid or whatever you were doing, teachers were burning the candle at both ends, trying to just figure out what teaching had become, and then also balance their life as a mom or a dad or a partner or whatever, you have going on in your life. And so I went to my friend Kelly and I was like, Kelly, we have to bring back Chock full of life. Teachers need this now more than ever. And so she graciously agreed to let me bring it back. And that's kind of like how it all came to be. So
I love it. I always love hearing people's stories of how they got started in business. And I see so many similarities with everyone I talk to, especially moms, about that struggle of going back to work after having, especially your first kid. It's such a shock to the system. And I know I had a very similar experience. I had a really hard time going back to work after my first. You feel like you are just stretched so thin. And when you were talking about when you had your burnout episode, I mean, I feel like up until a couple of years ago, there really hasn't been this conversation around teacher self-care and teacher wellness, and not just surface level self-care, but like really getting to the root of the issue and really giving teachers the support that they need. So I love that that is what your business is focused on. I think you're doing such important work because, like you said, teachers do need this more than ever. And it just seems like every single day, something new is happening that is added to teachers' plates. And so it's a really tough time. So I love what you're doing. Now, what made you decide that it was time for you to start your podcast?
Well, I've been a podcast junkie myself.
Mm-hmm. I know all about that.
So that was a way, like I don't have a long commute to work. It's like 15, 20 minutes, which is just long enough to get into a good podcast. And so I always like to start my day off with a motivational podcast on my way to work. And then coming home, there were no rules. Sometimes I, would blast 90s music.
Depends on the mood, right?
Sometimes I'd row home in silence, but
yes. Oh, same. Sometimes sometimes there needed to be silence so that you could have a good cry.
Right, that too. Yeah. But I just have always been drawn to podcasts. And I listened to several different teacher and educational podcasts. And I just thought, why not me? It's such an easy way for teachers to hear information because you could listen while you're doing the dishes, on your drive to and from school, on a walk. You don't have to sit down and be tied to something because we're just so busy. And so I just felt like podcasting was a good way for me to get my message out to as many teachers as I could.
Yeah, that's what I love about podcasting as well. You just have the ability to reach so many people and reach them in a way that works with their schedule. And I think teachers specifically are the perfect people to create podcasts for that reason, but also because, I don't know about you, but I know the educational podcasts that I listen to and that I know of, they kind of are they almost serve as like a PD that teachers can listen to learn all of these great strategies that they can take back to their classroom. And then there's this other kind of content that is that more motivational and inspirational. And they definitely need a mix of both. And I love the idea of kind of listening to a motivational podcast on your way to work to get you amped up and ready for the day.
Yeah, I needed that a lot this last year.
Yeah, I bet. So tell me, how did you, because you are part of the Podcasting for Educators Prep School. You joined this summer, which is so wonderful. And I'd love to know, like, what made you decide to join? had you already started kind of your process of launching or relaunching really the podcast Chock full of life, or like what was that point that made you decide that you needed some extra support?
Well, when I found your podcast, I like binged listened to it because I had already in the back of my mind knew I wanted to start a podcast, but I didn't know how to. And so I listened to all of your episodes in sequential order, and the information that you share on your podcast is amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I heard you were coming out with a course, and I'm also a course junkie too.
Yes.
And so I thought, and the timing was perfect with it being the summer. And my goal this summer was to start or relaunch the podcast. And so it was just perfect timing. And when I started your course, you give a lot of information on your podcast, which is awesome, but the course was even more like step by step and just almost hand holding without you literally holding our hand. But like I could like watch the video and do whatever that step was right alongside. So it just was that added more close hand holding that really, really helped me get my show off the ground.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm so glad to hear that you've been enjoying it and that it's been helpful for you. I agree. I think like the difference is obviously with a podcast, if it's an audio only podcast, you can give information, but with something like a course, you're able to actually see it in action and have those videos that can help you kind of walk through the process. So actually, before I go into that, tell us about your podcast. Like tell us a little bit more about what the Chock full of life podcast is, what kind of topics you cover, and who specifically it's for.
Okay, so the Chock full of life podcast is for any educator, honestly, from pre-K up through 12th grade, any educator. I mean, I'm elementary, so maybe there might be a little more of a lean towards that audience, but it's for any educator. And it's just, I share tips and strategies on how to kind of do it all without doing it all, because you can't do it all. And I use the word balance, and the one course that I have is called the Balanced Teacher Life, only because I think people want balance, but I teach them that balance doesn't exist.
No.
It's this magical thing that we all want, but we'll never have.
Sounds nice in theory.
Right? So I just teach a variety of strategies. I'm also really honest and raw, and I hope relatable to my audience, that I've been there, I've done that twice, burnt myself out twice. And I try to talk about topics that are relevant to the teaching world today. I keep my episodes to 15 to 20 minutes max, because we don't have time to listen much more than that. And I just want to show up consistently every week in teachers' ears to just be inspirational, motivational, and to just help them. My ultimate goal is in this world of, they're called quit talks, or is that what they're called on TikTok? The teachers that are just like leaving.
I just learned about this. Actually, I learned about this on a podcast. They were talking about this. I am actually not on TikTok. I know I need to probably.
You should.
I know. I need to do it. It's like one of those stubborn things. I'm like, I'm not going to do one more thing, but I know I need to join TikTok. I'm actually having somebody on my show next week to talk about TikTok. So I'm sure I'll make the jump. But I just heard about these. Right? Quit talks?
Quit talks. Yeah. So teachers, for a variety of reasons are leaving the field of education, leaving the classroom. And it's a personal decision, and everyone has to do what's best for them.
Yes.
But I feel that if we just looked at education differently, and the role of a teacher, and the fact that a teacher has a life outside of the classroom, we could help so many other teachers stay in the classroom who don't want to leave. Like if you want to leave, that's a whole other story, and that is totally okay. But I feel like so many teachers are driven out that still have years, if not a decade or more, of amazing talent to give to the field of education. If we just valued teachers and gave them the respect and value that that we deserve as professionals. But my podcast is hopefully a way for teachers to realize you can unapologetically have a life outside of school. You can unapologetically leave at contracted time and still be a good teacher. So that's my ultimate goal, is to help keep more teachers in the classroom that want to be there.
Yes, that's amazing, Rachel. And as you're talking, I'm kind of just like thinking back to when I was in the classroom and like how I wish that I had a resource like this, because it's almost like we need to totally switch the narrative around teaching, because I know I never had that perspective of like, oh, I could actually leave right when the kids leave or at contracted time, and I can arrive at school at contracted time and have that light. I mean, I totally agree with you that there is no balance, but like have some sort of balance like other professionals do in other careers. And I never thought that that was possible as a teacher. So I think that that's so important. And you're absolutely right. I mean, teachers are leaving the profession in huge numbers, and we need those good teachers. We need teachers who want to be in the profession. And I know that there are still so many who want to be there, but they're just surrounded by so much negativity on social media, and negativity with probably their own coworkers at school as well. So those kinds of conversations are going to be so, so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially just coming off of the last 3 years, it just amplified so many systemic issues, honestly, within education.
Yes, that need to be addressed. Yeah. So hopefully some good will come out of the past 3 years.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
I'm interrupting this episode for a brief moment to answer one of the biggest questions that podcasters have. How do I continue to bring in and retain new listeners? Here's my favorite answer: podcast guesting. When you guest on the right podcasts, you're positioning yourself in front of ideal listeners and customers. This is a powerful strategy when done intentionally, and I can show you how in my mini course, Guesting for Educators. In this course, I'll teach you my 3-step approach to landing and leveraging podcast guest interviews. When you join, you'll get access to the course content, templates, swipe copy, and even a list of shows who are currently accepting guests. The best part, you can work your way through the content in less than a weekend. What are you waiting for? Head to www.podcastingforeducators.com/guesting to learn more. Back to the episode. Now, I know I kind of bounced around there, but I did want to go back and just have you share more about your podcast so that we have that context before we talk a little bit more about how things are going so far with you with podcasting. So let's back up a little bit. And I'd love to hear how the launch process went for you. Did it go smoothly? Like what kinds of things felt really easy? And then what challenges did you face, if any?
Well, I was so excited to get started. And I'm the kind of person that I tend to like binge and just kind of go for it.
Me too.
And so I did that, and I kind of like scared myself, and I reached out to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, Sarah, what do I do? And you talked me off the ledge. But
yes. And almost everybody has that moment at some point in the process. Sometimes it's at the very beginning. Sometimes it's like the day of launch, and other times it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I know. I remember I had said I wanted to launch on June 21st. And you're like, why? And I'm like, well, because it's the first day of summer. And you're like, well, why?
Yes. And that's everybody's like, I want to launch tomorrow. And I try to say, let's just slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. And it's good to be excited, but taking your time and doing it at the pace that actually feels good to you is really important.
Absolutely. And so once I slowed down it's like that saying, like you have to slow down to speed up.
Yes.
So I had listened to all of the modules and just soaked everything in like a sponge, and I was ready to roll, and then got like imposter syndrome. Like, who wants to listen to me? Like, I'm just a teacher that, but everyone's story is so important. And I just feel that everyone has their own permission to share their story. And so that's what I did. I just started, and I started recording, and I fell in love with recording my podcast. I could record
Oh, that
8
gave me like
episodes a day.
goosebumps. I love it.
I've become obsessed with recording episodes. So that is my absolute most favorite part, is the sitting down with the microphone, and I have like my little outline and just going for it. I love that. And you had asked if there was any like hiccups or any things along the way, and everything went relatively smoothly. Your course just literally lays it all out, and the calendar that you have in there. Like, I'm a planner, and so the way that calendar was laid out, it was like I did it myself. Like, I was like, this is amazing. And so I literally like had 2 or 3 tasks a day that I would do up until lunch, and it just made it like baby steps. And so I just follow the baby steps one by one by one. It was not overwhelming, and I just did it. And then the only little hiccup, and it was my fault completely, was when I launched. In the course, you teach about launching 3 episodes at a time, because we're in this like binge culture, and I'm one of the bingers.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
When I had gone into Libsyn to upload my episodes, I had them all launching at the exact same time, and they launched out of order. So it was like I had episode 2, then 1, then 3, and I'm like, what happened?
Yes.
But that was totally my mistake, and it was super easy to fix, and you helped me fix it. So, and you even taught it in the course. I just like didn't tune into that one little tidbit. So,
but you know what? It was actually, and then what you did was great, which is you came into the course has a private Facebook group, and you came in and shared that you had done that to warn people, because a lot of people were getting ready to launch. And so now people have your advice that they can keep in their mind when they go to schedule their episodes. So there was some good that came out of that. And it's just a reminder that honestly, anything that you put up on your podcast is fixable. Like, you can take things down, you can reschedule things. So it is low pressure, and almost anything that you update is pretty immediate to, like, those updates are pretty immediate to be reflected on the different listening apps. So hey, if that was your only hiccup, that is pretty darn good.
I know. I was actually surprised myself. I'm like, this is actually kind of easy.
Good.
People think of podcasting and they think, oh, it has to be this big production. And honestly, it's a couple of supplies from Amazon, your mic, your headphones, a computer that you most likely already have, and you're set. Like, it's not this big, scary thing.
Yeah, I know. It is crazy to think, like, before you get started, there's going to be that moment of like imposter syndrome. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on a podcast. I'm going to be on people's phones. What in the world? Like, who am I to do this? Everybody has those thoughts, but truly, anybody can start a podcast. You don't need that many things. And just back to your point that I really love of, everybody has their own stories. Everybody has their own messages. Even if it's a similar message to something else that somebody speaks on, everybody delivers things in a different way, and everybody connects with different people in different ways. So podcasting is just, it gives people a voice. You can bring guests on, teachers in the classroom. It gives people that opportunity to have a platform to speak on and to reach lots and lots of people with their messages. So I'm glad that you are enjoying it and seeing the many, many benefits of it. I think sometimes sitting down and recording a solo episode can almost like feel a little bit like therapy, I would imagine, especially with your topics.
Yes. In fact, I just recorded 2 episodes yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. And the last episode I recorded was, it's a really vulnerable conversation that teachers need to kind of have with themselves. And to have it with myself again was like, whoo. It was a much needed therapy session.
Yeah. And then it's like this roller coaster, because maybe an episode like that, you might feel nervous to like record it, and then you do it and it feels good. Mm-hmm. But then it's the day that it goes out and those nerves come back, because, people are actually going to be listening to it. But those are the episodes that are going to make such an impact on people. And I just have to tell you, like, even listening to your trailer that you had sent me, your voice is so soothing. You just have such a great way about you that makes you so perfect for podcasting. And I think people are just going to absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, so now that you've been through this process, if anybody is listening who's thinking about starting their podcast, or maybe they've gotten started, but they're feeling a little bit stuck, do you have any advice for them to kind of push forward?
Honestly, it's that same old thing of just do it.
Yeah.
It might seem scary, but push through that fear, do it scared, and just keep going. You're going to get imposter syndrome. Everybody gets imposter syndrome, and that's normal, but just keep going, because in the end, when it's done and you publish your first, or you launch your first episode, it's just incredible. I can't tell you how much I just love this it's like a new creative outlet for me.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. And I hear that all the time, that it brings an element of fun and joy to your business that everybody needs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would just say do it, and do it scared.
Yes, that's great advice. Okay, now I have 2 questions that I ask my guests that are kind of just for fun. So the first one is, if you could interview your favorite childhood star just for fun on your podcast, who would it be?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
Early 90s.
Yep, me too.
So I don't know if you remember TGIF. Fridays.
Yeah.
On Fridays, they had like
course.
the lineup of Full House and Urkel and
Yep.
all of that.
Step by step.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that one.
They would change the lineup, but
They would.
yeah, Full
yes.
House was a staple for sure.
Yes.
And Family
that
Matters.
was my favorite. I was a Full House lover. And like Fuller House, I was like, I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. But getting back to your question, I would totally love to interview DJ Tanner, Candace Cameron Bure. So I follow her on Instagram now, and I love her. She's just a great human. But I would love to interview DJ Tanner.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. I know. I think it was yesterday on Instagram. The girls who played on Sister. Is it Tia?
The twins, Tamara and
Tia and Tamara.
I think so.
Yeah, they popped up on my Instagram. So now I'm following them too. I just love this question because I love going back and like thinking about all the great shows that we grew up with.
Oh, it was awesome. Those were the best.
Yes, they were.
And you couldn't like binge watch them. You had to watch them at 8:00 or 8:30.
Yes. And I remember, I still have memories of sitting down because our whole family would watch it together. Pizza night, TGIF. Life was good.
Yes. Good old days.
I know. It's not the same anymore.
Our kids won't ever know that. They'll be like, they always pull up the DirecTV and they're like scrolling for like, that's not how TV used to be.
I know. Our remote, we have, I'm afraid to say her name, but Alexa.
Yeah.
In our house. And it's hooked up to our TV. And so my daughter literally just says her name and says, play whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea.
They have no idea the struggles.
No idea. But now we have these great stories that we can reminisce on.
And they're just like, Mom, are you crazy?
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Okay. And then question 2 is, do you have any favorite podcasts right now? It can be for fun or for business.
Absolutely. Well, I listen to you regularly.
I love it.
And then I also listen to Hustle Sanely by Jess Massey. I really love her for business and life too.
She's in my library too. Have you ever gotten her planner?
I do have her planner.
You do?
Yes.
Do you love it?
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I used to be an Erin Condren girl.
Same.
And totally converted. Totally. Like if you don't have it, don't get it now because wait until 2023.
So I tried last year, and by the time I had just found out about her, and her planner was sold out.
Oh.
So I know I got to get it.
If you get on her
year.
email list, you'll get first dibs.
Okay.
I'll remind you.
Okay. Thank
Usually
you.
November, October, November is when she launches. But it is the best. I don't use it for school. I use it for my business and my personal life.
Yeah.
But love it, love it, love it. So anyway, her podcast. And then for just for fun and motivation, I recently read Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And then I found her podcast, We Can Do Hard Things.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So good. It's so good.
So good. Like, I'm not being dramatic when I say like life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, yeah. Everyone needs to listen to some Glenn Doyle. Or
Yes.
Glennon. Sorry, Glennon. I always call her Glenn.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard name to say.
Doyle.
Yes, I have that one in my library too, and I need to listen to it more because the episodes I have listened to are absolutely fantastic.
Like, that's like therapy.
It is like therapy. Did you listen to the gun violence one?
No, not yet.
She did. I'll send it to you. It's so good, and it's also like very informative. I learned a lot. So
I got goosebumps.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Yeah, it's a great podcast. I totally agree.
Yeah. Love podcasts. I can always find a podcast to listen to.
Oh my gosh, me too. And I'm always looking for, even though my library is like full, I'm always looking for new podcasts, which is great news for podcasters.
Yes.
Because people are obsessed. If they're a podcast listener, they're usually obsessed. All right. So before we wrap up, can you just tell us where we can find you online, where we can find your podcast, all that good stuff?
Sure. I'm a lot of places. I'm on Instagram at Chock-full of Life. I'm on TikTok.
Yeah, go girl.
At Chock-full of Life. I'm not as active on TikTok. I'm getting there. I'm kind of, just little bits and bits.
Is it basically this? I feel so lame even asking this question because I don't know the answer to. But is it basically like creating Instagram reels? Is it the same kind of process?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It's the same concept. Yeah,
okay.
Really it is.
Okay.
But you can't like cross post. Like they don't like your algorithm gets funky. So okay. I don't know. But anyway, it's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
My kids make fun of me because I'm on TikTok. They think it is the most embarrassing, ridiculous thing ever. They're like, Mom, that is so cringe.
Oh my gosh. Wait, how old are your kids?
12 and 9.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The 12-year-old is like so embarrassed by the fact that I have TikTok.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, that just makes me want to do it more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're just fueling the fire. I have a just turned 5-year-old, and so she's not embarrassed of me yet, but I know it's coming.
Give it some time.
It's coming.
Oh my. And then I also have a website, www.chockfulloflife.com.
Awesome. That is great. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time and appreciate you sharing your experience. I know people are going to enjoy hearing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is the first time I've ever guested on a podcast, and it was so much fun.
You rocked it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. To keep this conversation going, connect with me on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about podcasting. If you're looking for support in launching, managing, or growing your podcast, check out my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School, at podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. I'll see you here next time.